This section isn't angles, it's segment lengths. So it's the pictures are going to look the same, it's just you're not finding the degrees. In the last section, the one we just corrected, we found angles formed by two chords, and the angle out here formed by two secants, a tangent and a secant. So when we're finding segment lengths now, the way this works is here, this chord and this chord makes, it's cut into 4 different pieces. So like if this was X and this was 3, we'll say that's 5 and this is 8. One of them will be missing. You can set up an equation, and the way it works is this piece times the rest of it is going to equal this piece times the rest of it. Okay? So it's just 5x equals 24.
Mrs. Frisk, please dial 101, please. Mrs. Frisk, 101, please.
So you get 4.8. Okay? So when it's two chords, it's the piece times the piece equals the piece times the piece. Now these are done the same way, and also if they had, well, they wouldn't have two tangents because remember we had problems like this. How does this length compare to that? They're equal. So these will be the only two types, and they're both set up the same way. It's the outside piece, EA, times the entire length equals the outside piece, EC, times the entire length. Okay? So this is the same thing. It's the outside piece, which is AEA, times the entire length, which is also EA. So instead of putting EA times EA, they just put EA squared. Equals the outside piece times the whole length. So, they're either inside or outside. This one would be 10 times x equals 5 times 8. So x is 4. Those are simple. Now on some of these, we're going to have a few that you could use the quadratic formula on. We won't solve those. The ones that we're going to do are the ones where you wouldn't need the quadratic. But the rule is the same. You got to take the outside piece times the entire length, which is what? 12 plus x, or x plus 12, equals the outside piece times the entire length, 24. Okay? So when you solve it, you got to distribute that through. That'd be 12x plus 12 times 12, 144, equals 360. So we got to subtract 144 and then divide by 12. And you get 18. Okay, so this one they've got a tangent and a secant. So the rule is the same. It's the outside piece times the entire length, which happens to be the outside piece, equals the outside piece times what would this whole length be represented as?
9 feet in diameter. Oh, 9 plus x. No. 9 times x. R. R squared. R squared. 9 plus r squared.
Okay, an r, this distance right here is not r squared. What's r plus r equal to?
2 r.
2 r's. So what's the whole length gonna equal?
9 plus 2R.
9 plus 2 R's.
One of the things I said was that.
Okay, so 24 times 24 is 576 equals 9 times 9 and then 9 times 2R. So we got to subtract 81 and divide by 18. And you get 27.5. So this is one where the quadratic formula would have to be used because the outside times the entire length, which is just 10, equals the outside times what's the entire length? X plus 12. So when you write this one out, it's 100 equals x times x is x squared, x times 12 is 12x. Anytime you have an x and an x squared, you got to use negative b plus or minus b squared minus 4ac all over 2a to figure out the answer. So we're not going to solve any of those that we have to use the quadratic on. So that's all it is these three things. These two are done the same way. When it's inside, it's the piece times the piece equals the piece times the piece. 3 times 8 is 24. So divide by 4 and you get 6. When it's these, this one would be a quadratic also. If the x is ever on the outside, you're going to get a quadratic because it's the outside times the entire length, which is x plus 10, equals the outside times the entire length, which would be 19. So that would be x squared plus 10x equals 133. So again, if you've got an x squared and an x, you'd have to use the quadratic to solve it. So anytime the x is on the outside, that's going to happen. So we won't do any with the x on the outside. So here it would be the outside times the entire length equals the outside times the entire length, x plus 9. So 15 times 15, 225 equals 9x plus 81. So we got to subtract 81 and then divide by 9. And you get 16.